A young mother disappears into the night. The 27-year-old Alisha Marie Rowley Sidie left her house in Hatfield, leaving behind an eerie message. She was crying and begging for a callback. Her family was desperate, and her children kept asking where their mother was. Investigators searched for answers, but with each passing hour, the chances of finding Alisha alive grew slimmer and slimmer. Just when it seemed the case had hit a dead end, a dive team found the weapon. Hatfield, Wisconsin, is a quiet, beautiful town surrounded by pines and waterways. Deer hunters like to hunt there, and there are very few residents. In winter, only 50 people live there, so everyone knows everyone. The town seemed close-knit and friendly, but on November 19, 2008, a terrible story shook the residents. The police received a report about the mysterious disappearance of a woman. Alisha's mother, Sidie, walked through the streets with her other daughter and grandchildren, asking everyone to look at this photo, a photo of her daughter, their sister, their mother. Everyone was shocked. Alisha had 2 sons, and they missed her dearly. Tracy Rowley tried to be strong, but it was hard for her without her big sister. Alisha was her rock, and she always turned to her in times of need. Although Tracy was very scared, she refused even to think that something bad might have happened to her sister. When Tracy was on the news, all she could think about was that Alisha's abductor had to know she had a family who loved her. Ducky, the husband of the missing young woman, hugged his 2 children and set out to search for their mother. The boys approached everyone involved in the search, asking them to bring their mother home. Their aunt still remembers promising them that she would definitely return. In 2008, Tracy and Alisha were studying nursing. Previously, Alisha had been in the Air Force for several years. She had always dreamed of something bigger, but was homesick and eventually returned. Alisha worked 2 jobs while studying at the same time. When they found out they were expecting twin sons, Alisha and her husband Duck were, of course, surprised but happy. They were a wonderful family, and nothing indicated any problems. On Saturday, November 8, 2008, Duck called Tracy and asked where Alisha was. It turned out she hadn't come home that evening. Tracy knew that Alisha had gone to a friend's house after a fight with her husband and told Duck that she would look for her. She called her sister's friend and asked if she had seen Alisha, but she said she hadn't. As the woman explained, she wasn't worried at that time, but told Tracy they would look for her together. That evening, the young woman didn't show up for work. Alisha had never missed a shift, so everyone was more than a little worried. On Saturday evening, Alisha's husband, Sidie Duck, reported his wife's disappearance to the police. The officer who took the report was friends with Duck, and since Alisha worked nearby as a bartender, he knew her too, so the man wanted to do everything possible to find her as quickly as possible. Duck was the first suspect because he was the last person to have seen Alisha, but they lived in a small town, and the police didn't want to suspect an innocent person. So they drove to Duck's house to talk to him. So she's been missing since Friday, right? Yes. Tell me what happened. Duck told about a friend from Illinois who came here for a hunting trip. He and his friend, Jackson Simmons, spent the evening at a bar and then drove to Duck's house. Alisha stayed all day with her friend Natalie and then went home with the children. When did she come back? Around 9 p.m. The children were with her? Yes, we put them to bed together. She was angry because we had argued. Duck said they had argued about his son from a previous marriage. The man said that Alisha didn't want to see him. She couldn't stand his presence. But he's not a bad kid, mind you. It's just about her. She said she couldn't accept him. He's not her son. He admitted to the officers that they had fought and that he had thrown away Alisha's keys. I threw the keys into the yard, so she couldn't drive anymore. But he hadn't expected her to leave the house on foot. 20 minutes later, Duck looked for her. How long did you search for her? 20 minutes. It doesn't take long to walk around the area. I went to the bars. His alibi was that his friend Jackson spent the night with them. Your buddy was with you the whole time? Yes. Where is he now? In Chicago. He went home. The officers got Jackson's number and left him a voicemail. At that point, Duck's story wasn't suspicious to the officers. They then decided to check Alisha's call list. The last time she used her cell phone was on Friday at 9:30 p.m. She called her friend Natalie, and the officers decided to meet with her. According to her call list, she called you at 9:30 p.m. I didn't hear it. I must have turned it off when I went to bed. The next morning, Natalie listened to the message. She was crying and asked me to call her back as soon as I got the message. Natalie called back immediately, but she only got the answering machine. Not 2 minutes later, I got a call from Duck. I picked up, and he immediately asked me where Alisha was. I thought she had gone home. Duck said they had fought, and she had left the house, and then he cried. Natalie said there were often fights in the family. After every fight, she left the house and called me, crying. And every time, Alisha said she was fine and was sitting in the Bierman bar, as she always did. The Bierman bar was near the family's house. The police immediately wondered if Alisha might have left her husband. Could she have gone to someone else? The officers asked the bar owner if anyone had seen Alisha that evening. He said she hadn't been in the bar. The officers knew that Alisha had walked in the direction of that bar. Maybe someone had offered her a ride. It's deer hunting season. Hundreds of people from all over the state come to Hatfield to hunt. An attractive, drunk woman walking along the road late at night could very well have been picked up by someone, voluntarily or against her will. On Friday evening, around 9 p.m., the 27-year-old Alisha Sidie left her house in Hatfield and disappeared without a trace. The case became the main topic of all conversations. Reporters visited the Sidie family home to talk to Duck. Alisha's husband sat on the couch with the children, answered their childish questions, and at the same time asked them not to give up the search for their mother. Duck promised his sons that their mother would definitely be found and that everything would be fine. Alisha always remained calm when something went wrong, and Duck behaved the same way. Maybe that's why she loved him. They met in 2004. Duck walked into the bar where she worked. He was 13 years older than her and had his own business. Alisha immediately knew she had found her man. Their relationship quickly became serious. They went fishing and hunting together. Alisha always looked at him with a special smile. Duck wasn't a perfect man, but she loved him. They were really very happy. On Sunday, November 9th, the officers called investigator Moan and asked for his help. Moan had dogs trained to track people by their scent. The investigator took Alisha's coat from Duck and gave it to his dog, Clyde, to smell. The dog immediately picked up the trail and led Moan away from the street. They crossed the road, and Clyde ran towards the train tracks. They reached the cliff. There was about a 20-meter high drop. That seemed strange to everyone because Alisha was afraid of heights. There, Clyde stopped, which meant he had lost the scent. Since the trail had disappeared, the investigators suspected that Alisha might have gotten into someone else's car. On Monday morning, 2 days after the disappearance, the police had their first serious lead. A woman came to the police station and told them that Alisha had been in her auto repair shop 3 months earlier, in August. She had brought her car in for repairs and told what had happened to her car. Alisha had thrown one of the customers out of the bar. He was very drunk, and drunk people don't like to be argued with. The unknown man then began to threaten her. When she went home, Alisha saw what had happened to her car. Broken mirrors, windshield, scratches on the doors, severe damage. The investigators took these threats seriously. They wanted to do everything to find this visitor. It turned out that Alisha had reported the damage to the police. Unfortunately, she hadn't given the man's name. The man could have been anywhere. The officers wanted to find out if he had anything to do with the disappearance. While the police were looking for the man, Alisha's relatives continued their search for her. Friends, relatives, and hundreds of volunteers and police officers combed through all of Hatfield. Alisha had many good friends who all pulled together and joined the efforts. Sergeant Patrick LaBarbera said they had searched all the forests, rivers, and roads with boats, cars, and on foot. There were so many volunteers that it was already a challenge to organize them. Everyone wanted to find her. 200 people came from Milwaukee. Bartenders, casual acquaintances she barely knew. Alisha was a remarkable woman. People who didn't even know her, but knew her sister. All the neighbors came. Everyone tried to help. Alisha could have met with something terrible, but people left their children at home to search for her. That was very brave. Enormous efforts were made, but as the sun set, despair set in. At the end of a very cold third day, no trace of the missing woman could be found. But Alisha's family didn't lose faith. They hoped to find her alive. The police received more than 100 possible leads, and one of them gave everyone hope. Alisha had been seen at Walmart on Saturday, the day after her disappearance. A man who knew the family insisted that it was her. Everyone breathed a sigh of relief. Then another witness came forward to the police who knew Alisha personally. He had also seen her at Walmart. That meant Alisha was alive after her disappearance and was doing well. On Tuesday, the fourth day after the young woman's disappearance, the police received the surveillance footage from Walmart. They were to review it to find Alisha. They really hoped to see the woman alive, but the officers didn't find Alisha in the video recordings. Still, they hoped she was in the supermarket. But when new witnesses emerged, everything came together. Alisha and her sister looked very similar. And it wasn't Alisha that people saw, but her sister Melissa, who went to Walmart on Saturday. In the meantime, the investigators learned the name of the man who had threatened Alisha after she had thrown him out of the bar. They tracked him down and found out that he had an alibi. At that time, it was already possible to determine where his phone was. The investigators found out that he was not near the Sidie family's house that night. They finally returned to the beginning and didn't know what to do next. The community's pressure on the police grew with each passing hour. With each hour that passed, the chances of finding Alisha alive grew smaller, and the investigators wanted to speak again with those who knew her. They met with her friend Natalie, described their relationship. She and Duck had a lot of problems. She cried a lot and didn't know what to do. It turned out that Alisha often left, came back, and left again because she didn't know if she wanted to be with Duck. She told me she had decided to leave Duck and move in with Jake. At this point, the investigators learned that Alisha had recently been living with another man. This would allow her to save money. He had trouble paying the bills alone, and then they grew closer. He said he loved her. That scared Alisha. After all, she didn't want that at all. So the young woman went back to her husband to try to save their relationship. The officers knew Jake and decided to talk to him as soon as possible. Natalie then remembered the incident from the evening of Alicia's disappearance. She had met Jake at the Sunset Bar. What happened then? Her behavior began to change. She wanted to talk to him. I told her not to go with him. Nothing would happen between them. Stop it. I nipped it in the bud. Jake was definitely worth talking to, and the police paid him a visit. Did you see Alisha on Friday? Did you talk to her? She said she would call me in half an hour. What did you talk about? I told her how I felt. It turned out that Jake really loved Alisha. This may sound strange and offensive, but is she by any chance at your house? No. Well, I'd like to talk to you about what you did that Friday. Where did you go? What did you do? How long were you at the bar? I left at 8 p.m. Where did you go after that? We went to Murphy's Pub. Tracy, Alicia's sister, works there. Then we went to my place. We had John Blackberry and his wife with us, my sister Stacy, and her friend Carmen. Witnesses confirmed seeing Jake with other people. There was no reason to believe he was involved. After talking to Jake, investigator Nichols decided to talk to Duck about his relationship with Alisha. If something happened that night, you have to tell us. Do you understand me? If something happened, you have to tell me. And Duck shared a lot with Tim. I can't think of anything, Tim. I don't even really know. He then said he was under great pressure from Alicia's family. Her father came to me. He dragged me outside and searched me. Her father expected to find traces of a struggle on his body in case Duck had something to do with Alicia's disappearance. And then Duck broke down for the first time. I understand how it looks from the outside. We had a fight. Duck felt that everyone suspected him, and that hurt him. After talking to the man, Investigator Nichols called him back for a second conversation with a specialist who conducted a multi-stage voice analysis. This technology is based on the purity of the voice, so they didn't need to measure Duck's blood pressure or put anything on his head. "You fought over your son. Tell me about that." "She couldn't accept my eldest son. That's a difficult subject for me. There was never a good phase between them. He's only 8 years old. That was a sticking point in our relationship. I don't really remember what I said. I was so drunk." "And what happened then?" "She was about to drive. I took her keys and threw them into the yard, hoping that would stop her from driving. That made her really angry, and she walked toward a bar near the house. So I took it easy and went into the house. I hope we could talk about it in the morning." "What do you think about her relationship with Jake? Could he have hurt her?" "I've heard he's a nice guy. And aside from trying to take my wife away from me, maybe he is." "Are you capable of hitting her?" "No, I love her too much." "What do you think happened? Do you think she was abducted or hurt?" "I'd like to believe that she escaped. Times are tough. She couldn't take it anymore and ran away from her problems. That's what I'd like to believe." In this conversation, there was nothing that stood out to the police. There were no inconsistencies in Duck's statements. The conversation with the man was coming to an end, but it would take hours to analyze it. In the meantime, Investigator Nichols was on his way to Champaign, Illinois, to verify Duck's alibi and meet with his friend Jackson Simmons. As he drove to his house, he received the results of the voice analysis. The investigator was informed that Duck had nothing to do with it. He had passed the test. Since the investigators were convinced of Duck's innocence, they turned their attention to his friend Jackson Simmons. Jackson was at the Sidie family home on the day Alisha disappeared. The investigators had many questions to which he might know the answers. He was very friendly and helpful. The investigator pointed out that their conversation was being recorded, which didn't bother Jackson. "We went to the beerman bar and had a beer. I bought a 6-pack of beer to take home. His house is right there, 30 meters away. He said he came home. He was very tired and drunk. We got home around 8:30 p.m. I hadn't slept much the night before and had drunk a lot, so I laid down and fell asleep immediately. It was then about 9 p.m. You didn't hear any shouting outside as they argued?" "No, I slept soundly." His and Duck's statements matched perfectly. He was at the house at the time, asleep, had drunk a lot, and fell asleep on the mattress. Jackson left the house the next morning at 7 a.m. He had shot a deer on Friday and was in a hurry to get back to his wife and child. He claimed he hadn't seen or heard anything. He could hardly be considered a witness. Jackson's statement was too perfect. He chose his words very carefully. He had a clear timeline from Thursday evening when he arrived at the Sidie family's house until his departure. The investigators had never heard anything like it. Jackson had obviously carefully prepared for the conversation, and his story resembled a script. The investigators had a whole series of questions. Had something happened between Jackson and Alisha? Could something have happened between them? He tried his best not to arouse suspicion, but why make such an effort? As a result, Jackson became a suspect. Then a new lead emerged in the Alisha Sidie case. The police found evidence in a body of water east of Black River Falls. On Wednesday, November 12th, 5 days after Alisha's disappearance, the police received a call from a woman in the area. She had decided to take a walk, reached the bridge over Morrison Creek, looked down, and saw a cell phone in the water. A team of investigators rushed to the site. There they found a silver object, which was the same phone as Alisha's. The phone was handed over to the criminal police, who collected all the necessary information. On the same day, the police captain reviewed the last conversation with Duck Sidie. He listened to his statement, then stopped the tape, walked down the corridor, entered the investigator's office, and said, "Something's not right here." The captain had heard something important. "I loved her. She was a good person, a very good person." He spoke of her in the past tense. The captain asked the investigator for his opinion. The investigator said it was a murder. The officers then obtained a search warrant. 6 days after Alisha Sidie's disappearance, the police sealed off the house where she lived with her husband. They searched the house to look for evidence and determine if a crime had taken place. The investigators found several cell phones and determined that the serial number of the phone found in the water matched the serial number on one of the phones found in Sidie's house. After confirming that it was Alisha's phone, the investigators sent a team of divers to thoroughly search the body of water. In the meantime, the search in Sidie's house was not yet finished. Duck's weapons safe was in the garage. He gave the investigators the code without objection. They checked all the weapons and serial numbers, but found an empty gun case. Knowing how meticulous Duck was with his possessions and hunting, the investigators immediately suspected that something was wrong. They wondered if Duck might have made a deal with Jackson Simmons. They listened to Jackson's statement and noted the time when the checks were cashed at the bar. He said he had bought a six-pack of beer and left around 8:30 p.m. However, according to the bar's records, he left at 9:15 p.m. Since the bar is only a few steps from Duck's house, Jackson could have quickly gotten home. Based on Alisha's last call, they believed that something had happened at the Sidie family's house at that time. The investigators decided to speak with Jackson again. He did his best to hide the incident from his wife and family, so the conversation took place in the investigators' car. We were hoping you could help us understand the situation. We've interviewed a lot of people, and as it turns out, not everything adds up. The investigators found many inconsistencies in his story. If the bartender is right and the cash register matches, you're lying. I was sleeping, so I didn't know what happened. He had a pen and a notepad in his hand. One of the alarm signals was that he clicked his pen when asked uncomfortable questions. He wasn't aware of it, but the clicking was comparable to a lie detector test. Are we to believe that you slept peacefully in the house? That's hard for me to believe. When the investigators put pressure on him, he started clicking his pen nonstop. You have a family, a good job. We know we can't find her alive, but we'd like to find Alisha. He trembled. The investigator put his hand on his knee and said, I know you want to tell me something. And then Jackson broke into tears. Nothing at all. I'm still in shock about what happened. That's all everyone is talking about. I just don't understand how he could get so angry. What happened that night? I went out, and he said he had shot Alisha. He had put a sheet over her. I said, what happened? What did you do? The investigator had tears in his eyes. Until that day, Alisha had been reported missing. He said he had to dispose of the body and left. Jackson wanted to pack his things and go back to Illinois, but he found out that Duck had killed Alisha and thought he might do something to their sons. I thought about the children. I wanted to stay so he wouldn't do anything to them. He was very emotional. He cried, apologized. I'm sorry I didn't tell you earlier. He was afraid for his family. If Duck could do that to his wife, what would he do to someone who turned him in? Jackson agreed to return to Wisconsin with the investigator as a witness. In the meantime, divers continued to search the river and used the latest technology to solve the mystery of Alisha's disappearance. Searching for clues, they plunged into the mud where visibility was zero, and it was very cold. Their efforts were successful. A team of divers recovered a weapon. The investigators checked the weapon serial number and found that it was the weapon missing from Duck's safe. So the missing weapon was found. The weapon they found was missing a bullet. After gathering a lot of evidence against Duck, he was summoned again for interrogation. What happened on Friday evening? Initially, his statement didn't change. He said he and Alisha had argued. She said she would take the twins and run away, and I'd never see them again. This time I thought she meant it. She used to talk a lot of nonsense. She behaved badly. I don't remember much anymore. I really don't know. I think I was blind with rage. And then his statement changed. When Alisha turned and left the garage, Duck pulled a weapon from the safe and tucked it into his waistband. We walked toward the house. She turned and said something sarcastic. I pulled my gun and shot her. I couldn't believe I'd shot her. I couldn't believe my eyes when she started to fall. I panicked. Will you take us to the body? Yes. Duck pointed to a spot in the woods. Since the police couldn't find Alisha's body, they used a search dog. At that point, Investigator Mo realized why Clyde hadn't found Alicia's body the last time. It was found that the coat Duck had given the investigators had been worn by another woman. She was a friend of Alisha and had worn that exact coat when she joined the search for her. Clyde had been misled, but investigator Moan didn't make the same mistake. He gave Clyde Alicia's hairbrush and shoes. The dog picked up the scent and set off. After 1.5 kilometers, he stopped, stood in the middle of the road, and then ran towards the woods. The investigators realized that Alisha was there. A search dog helped find her body. Duck Sidie was arrested on charges of murdering his wife. On August 12, 2009, he was brought to trial. The man calmly entered the courtroom without a lawyer and faced the jurors, the grieving parents, sisters, and friends of Alisha Sidie. They all hoped for a life sentence. As a witness who helped in the investigation, Jackson Simmons was not charged. Duck Sidie pleaded guilty to first-degree premeditated murder and was sentenced to life imprisonment with the possibility of parole after 35 years. After the trial, everyone wondered what they should tell the now motherless children. Duck had said that he loved his children and would find their mother, even though he knew that would never happen. Shortly thereafter, the boys were taken in by Alicia's relatives. After the murder of Alisha, life in Hatfield Township changed. She was born and raised here. Many knew and loved her. Those who were close to her will mourn her for the rest of their lives. In memory of her sister, Tracy works with victims of domestic violence. She tells them what to watch out for, when they can leave the apartment, and when it's dangerous to stay in the apartment. She wants to share Alicia's light with the world. Thank you for watching, and take care of yourselves.